What's he done? They're going to build a wall. He can tell you by what he's doing, it's going to be a long-term affair. Today, we need to stop this in Texas. They're trying to take this. It's my feeling is that the Biden administration is using this as a political act to bring people to the United States so they can go vote. And what we're doing, that's the political rant that's happening. And we need to stop it. We are harming our families. We're harming our businesses. We're harming our governments. And I'll turn this over to the sheriffs.
Thank you, Judge. Good afternoon. My name's Thaddeus Cleveland. I'm the Sheriff of Terrell County, Texas, out in Sanderson, Texas. I can speak to this issue. Very familiar with it, having been a Border Patrol agent for the last 26 years. The last 11 years as patrol agent in charge of the Sanderson Station in Sanderson, Texas. It's something that, again, have experienced. When I started out in Nogales back in 1996, when we were catching 1,000 illegal aliens a day, 30,000 a month. Sanderson, Terrell County, we're at unprecedented levels. Historically, every year we catch about 1,000 aliens. Until last year, we were up to 5,500, which doesn't sound like a lot. It's a drop in the bucket compared to what we see the Rio Grande Valley, Del Rio, El Paso, other portions of the border. But Sanderson is typically the busiest station between Del Rio to El Paso, Texas. Big Bend sector, which is from Sierra Blanca or Hudspeth County all the way to Terrell County, encompasses over 500 miles of border. That's a quarter of the border of the U.S.-Mexico border. 500 miles is the Big Bend sector, all of the Big Bend area within Texas. Texas has 1,200 miles of border with Mexico, so we're looking at almost half of the border, and we are seeing a significant increase in all stations in all counties within the Big Bend sector. Again, unprecedented levels. We've heard a lot about deaths. Last year we had a total of 12 deaths, which again, in other portions of the border isn't a lot, but for our county, that is significant. This year, I retired April 30th. I've been the sheriff for a month and a half. We've had 6 deaths, and again, for us, that's unprecedented. We lose the ability to respond to our citizens because we're having to respond to Border Patrol agent calls, and again, having been a Border Patrol agent, I tell you, we, the county, rely a whole heck of a lot more on Border Patrol than they rely on us. We're just able to get out and help them when we can. But it also takes away from our emergency medical centers. Out in the Big Bend part of Texas, we measure in hours rather than miles. So when we have to have an EMS call to take someone who's sick and injured, which is rightfully so, we're looking at an hour drive to Fort Stockton. The crew will be there for a bit, and then an hour drive back to Terrell County, and that takes valuable time away from our own citizens. I can tell you, though, what the governor has done has been tremendous in Terrell County. The funding we've received for border security, the amount of DPS, whether they're troopers, Texas Rangers, or if we've received also, in addition to that, Texas Parks and Wildlife, have been a huge assistance. And it's something we welcome, something we'd like the governor to continue to support us with. It's, again, no fault of the Border Patrol. We're just under-resourced. That part of the border, we have lack of not just manpower, technology, and infrastructure. We don't need a wall on this portion of the border because we have a God-made barrier with the canyons of the Rio Grande, 2,000 to 1,000 foot cliffs. But we can use some additional resources such as manpower and technology. Lastly, I'd just like to say that it is a fixable problem. I know the judge mentioned about it being fixed. It could be fixed. Up in the Beltway, they don't want to fix the problem. It could be solved quickly. Isn't anything we have not faced before. It's just on a different border. It's fixable. And what the governor's done in Terrell County and other portions of the county has been tremendous, and we welcome more support, and we encourage more support. Thank you.
Thank you. It's right there. Sir? It's right there. Sir? Sir? Okay. It's right there. The other side.
Everybody can hear me okay?
This one right here?
Yes, sir. Just hang. Yep.
Just trying to arrange these
You can put it down
microphones. It's,
the other.
the other way. All right, how's that? Great.
This is like a Marx Brothers car.
Okay. All right. Are we ready? My name is Brad Coe. I'm the sheriff here in Kinney County. I want to thank you all for coming. Like everybody before me has said, this is unprecedented in Kinney County. I started with the Border Patrol here in 1985, and I've never left. I've been here 37 years, and I have never, ever seen what we're seeing today. Our pursuits are ungodly. The amount of aliens that my guys are catching is through the roof. All of last year, my troops, I've got 6 full-time deputies, 1 school resource officer, and 10 stone garden deputies. Part-time deputies, they can work up to 25 hours. Last year we caught 1,121 illegal aliens walking or being smuggled through our county. We thought we'd hit the peak. We thought we had hit the big time. So far this year, we're over 1,600. Last year, my team caught 188 total smugglers. This year so far, 372. Our numbers are going to triple. We cannot sustain this type of invasion. We've got a game camera system set up called Drawbridge, and every night, part of my job before I go to bed is I go through those pictures and I count the number of people that have set off those cameras that are walking through Kinney County. Last month, we had 4,350 some odd. The month before that, 4,200. So far for the year, over 10,000 people have walked through Kinney County uncontested. Nobody's touched them. Nobody's seen them since we've seen them on camera. We are under siege. Last year when we declared the state of emergency, the governor gave us a huge amount of money, which we're truly grateful for. And like everybody said, the Biden administration refuses to do their job. Secretary Mayorkas basically said this is due to climate change, basically saying he doesn't want to do his job. The laws are there. They can enforce the laws if they so choose. But Border Patrol is being held back. They're not being permitted to do their job as they were intended to do by regulation. There's been some talk. It's been online. We had a wreck a couple of days ago up in Rock Springs. 1 individual was killed. We had 4 other individuals in the vehicle that weren't hurt. They didn't need any assistance. They declined all medical attention. I could not turn them over to any federal agency. Nobody would take them because we had to take them to the doctor first to be checked out. Don't have the personnel to take them, sit in the hospital for 4 or 5 hours while they get examined. Don't need to clog up the emergency room with people that aren't injured. So I made a command decision. Took it upon myself to offer them a ride back to where they could get home safely and securely. And if I have to, I'll do it again. My job is to protect my county, my state, and my country. Under the Constitution, I will do that. My county comes first, followed by the state. We're asking for more assistance. The governor's doing what he can, I understand, but I think there's more that can be done from the federal system and the state system as well. When Texas joined the Union, part of that agreement was they would protect our border, and they are not doing that. So I will pass this on to the next one in line, and thank you all very much.
I'm Sheriff Calvin Boyd. There's going to be another Boyd come up in a few minutes, so don't get us confused. I'm from Burnett County, which is 4.5 hours from here, but I wanted to come up in support of this today. And first of all, I want to thank you all for being here. This needs to be covered, so we appreciate y'all being here to cover this. I'm not going to pretend, I'd never pretend that we have the same issues that the border counties have yet, but I think it's probably moving our way. But the way it does affect us is in ways you would imagine. Our school districts, our medical facilities, and also if our troopers are down here, that means they're not home. So that leaves a big hole in law enforcement throughout the state. So this is a unprecedented, and I appreciate y'all doing this. We have not done this in Burnett County yet, but I'm gonna bring this up to the Commissioner's Court and see if we maybe get this done. There's not a day that goes by that our citizens aren't asking me about the border and what we're going to do about the border. And they're frustrated, they feel helpless, so they turn to their elected officials. And it is our job. It is our job to figure something out and to fix this. And again, thank you for being here today. Thank you. Brother Boyd.
Good afternoon. I'm Sheriff Roy Boyd from Goliad County, Texas. We are a small county, population-wise, about 7,400 people, about 3 hours from Laredo and about 3.5, 4 hours from the Valley. If you would have told me almost 29 years ago when I entered law enforcement that this is what I'd be dealing with, I would have told you there's no way. You hear the term invasion, and that's exactly what this is. But you hear the term immigration, and I'm going to tell you this is not immigration, this is slave trade. We deal with this every day in our counties. These individuals that are being brought to us, coming through our county and we are intercepting, they are not free to go. They are the property of the cartels who get them to Houston and then move them around the country where they have to work off their indebtedness to the cartel one way or another. Whether that be unloading drugs, selling drugs, working in restaurants, working in hotels, or whether it be forced prostitution all across the United States of America. These individuals are not free. We're importing a peon class, and we are allowing the cartels to do it. It is an invasion that is being pushed by the cartels into our country, and it must come to a stop. This may be hard for some people to swallow because you think slavery ended a long time ago, but it did not. It's taking place in modern America right now, and we're seeing it firsthand in law enforcement. Governor Abbott threw us a lifeline when we were drowning. We appreciate everything he has done for us. We appreciate the funds through Operation Lone Star. We were going under, and he threw us a lifeline, and he saved us. He gave us the ability to defend our counties when we didn't have the resources to do such. But the tide is rising, and the work is increasing, and the invasion is continuing. We've gone from having one vehicle loaded with illegal aliens and a scout vehicle in front of it to caravans of 5 or more vehicles loaded with drugs and illegal aliens coming through at a time. I do not want the cartel driving past my gate where my kids wait for the school bus in the morning every single day. That's an unnerving feeling. And I'm sure nobody else wants to live that reality either. But that is the reality that we're living, because I've seen it firsthand. I've engaged in the pursuits. My men and I have arrested a lot of people as a result of what's going on right now. These are things that are unprecedented. But I must say, the key thing is, this is good versus evil, as been said before. It is. When George Washington swore in as the first elected president of the United States of America, he had his Bible open to Deuteronomy 28. Deuteronomy 28, for those of you who do not read the Bible, is the blessings of people who follow the commandments of God and the curse of people who do not follow the commandments of God. George Washington understood the fact that this nation must be built off of the Bible and follow the commandments of God. Unfortunately, many people have turned their back on God, and woe to us, as the Bible says, because it is coming. We're going to have to take a different path. Yes, we ask for the governor's help to do what he can do, as he has done in the past. We appreciate anything he'll be able to do to help us out as our tide keeps rising and our burden keeps growing. Thank you very much. God bless you, and you have a good afternoon.
Afternoon. Thank you for coming. My name is Brent Smith. I'm Kenny County Attorney. And as the Judge mentioned,
Brent, they cannot hear you. Here, take this.
what about this one?
Grab the one that's just like it.
All right.
Yes, sir.
Have me now?
Got you now.
I'm Brent Smith, Kenny County Attorney. And as the judge just mentioned earlier, we had a county resident, actually she called me from this past week. She has 10 bullet holes in her vehicle after a smuggler shot repeatedly into her car while trying to avoid DPS. I've had ranchers call me, a mother who was inside of her house while several illegal aliens were trying to break in, opening her door. They attempted breaking in until the sheriff arrived for at least 15 minutes. We've had ranchers out on the property with young children discovering dead bodies, having to explain to those kids why those dead bodies are there. This is not sustainable for Texas. The residents of Texas shouldn't have to explain to their young children why there's dead people on their property. They shouldn't have to be fired upon going down the roads, minding their own business. This is what we're up against. When I drafted the declaration, it was pretty straightforward. You go to the U.S. Constitution on Article 1 and Article 4, where each state is guaranteed to be free against evasion. Article 1 grants the states the power, if the federal government doesn't act, to take matters into their own hands to protect their citizens. The Texas Constitution also says that. Some people have said that, well, you haven't described what an invasion is. In the Declaration, the numbers speak for themselves. Tell the rancher we're not being invaded. Tell the lady driving down the highway she's not being invaded. Tell the citizens of Kinney County and every county on the border you aren't being invaded. I think they're going to beg to differ with you. We're at a crossroads in Texas and the United States. Governor Abbott the other day made a speech in Eagle Pass where he said unprecedented times calls for unprecedented measures. I totally agree. And I support Governor Abbott's efforts he's done under Operation Lone Star. What these counties behind us we're doing, we're taking unprecedented action. In the few following weeks, there are going to be many more counties that do the same. Texans are tired of it. This is not acceptable. I want to thank y'all for being here, for passing along the message, and for covering this issue because it affects not only Texas, but the rest of the United States. Thank you.
Thank you all for being here. I'm Chip Roy, and I represent the 21st Congressional District of Texas. It's just a few miles north of here, the western southwest edge of the boundary of the district that I represent in Riala County. I want to thank all of these sheriffs, all these judges, and all these local politicians. I really want to thank you for hosting this. I want to thank you for your courage because what they're doing right here is doing what the Attorney General of Arizona did and what the Attorney General of Texas needs to do, which is recognize an invasion of the state of Texas that is undermining our security, risking the health and well-being of Texans, allowing fentanyl to pour into our schools and communities for Texans to die, allow our ranches to get run over, empowering cartels who are well armed along the border with their tentacles reaching into Texas. You damn right that's an invasion. What else do you call it? You want to sit back and hand wring and sit around and wrap yourselves around the axle about a definition of invasion when the people of Texas are experiencing an invasion. And the whole point here, why we're here, is that these individuals have the courage to stand up and say it formally, to formally declare what is true, that we are being invaded. The language of the statement that they put out, that as a matter of law, the aforementioned facts which they outlined constitute, among other things, an invasion of Kinney County, Texas, as the term invasion is used in Article 4, Section 4 of the United States Constitution, Article 4, Section 7 of the Texas Constitution. That is what is happening. I was at Eagle Pass just this morning, meeting with Border Patrol. I was on the Rio Grande. I was up when about roughly 450 individuals, mostly when I was talking to them from Cuba, Venezuela, Colombia, all coming up, walking up to Border Patrol and getting what? Put in buses and then being sent to a processing facility to be released into the United States. That is what is happening. People say, oh, that's all fine. That's all just a humanitarian thing. But what's really happening is that all of those Border Patrol agents are processing people, undermining our law, releasing them to the United States unlawfully, illegally, which is why Mayorkas should be impeached, and then distracting Border Patrol from being able to do their job of patrolling the river, allowing fentanyl and terrorist actors and dangerous actors to come up and pour into the United States. 107,000 dead Americans from opioid overdoses and poisonings. Fentanyl, an NFL star, fentanyl poisoning. A college star, fentanyl poisoning. West Point cadets, fentanyl poisoning. What do you need to see the invasion that's happening to Texas? And you heard these great Americans, these great Texans, applauding the governor for stepping into the breach when President Biden and Secretary Mayorkas are leaving Border Patrol, dangling, fighting against a well-armed cartel. The governor is giving resources and providing help through DPS, razor wire, containers along the river. You've seen it. I was just down there looking at it today. But guess what? It doesn't work in the end if the federal government refuses to enforce the laws of the United States, and that is precisely what is happening. Not enough razor wire, not enough container stores, and not enough DPS troopers in the world to stop a federal government refusing to do its fundamental job to defend a sovereign nation. We should declare an invasion. We should, as Texas, turn people away and do what is necessary to secure our communities. Because as the judge said, we support our communities and protect our communities first, protect Texas, and then the federal government should be doing its job under the Constitution to reinforce that. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to former Attorney General of Virginia, Ken Cuccinelli, a good friend.
Good afternoon, you all. Thank you for coming. I'm going to start with what is historic today. This is the first time in American history today that a legal authority, that a court, a judge of this country, has found as a matter of law that the United States is being invaded. That has never happened before today. What does that trigger? Well, here in Texas, what it triggers is it gives the governor, if he decides similarly, the authority to repel that invasion. And all we're talking about is an operation that looks a lot like Title 42, which you've all come to know, the public health order on the border. Stopping people crossing, or shortly after, taking them back to the border, taking them back over the border. Until we're doing that in Texas, these numbers aren't going to change. I've heard a lot of the positive things Governor Abbott's done to support desperate communities across Texas, and not just at the border. That's been critical and necessary and helpful. But it doesn't change the fact that Texas and America is being invaded. It was noted the Attorney General of Arizona has entered an opinion. He was asked that question. He found the same thing. There is no legal authority that has found to the contrary. It's an Attorney General of Arizona and a judge of Texas. And they both came to the same conclusion, living with the same facts, and basing it on the same federal constitution. And of course, your judge here in Texas also noted that you all address the governor's authority when an invasion happens here in Texas. Having said that, that is historic. What I've heard here consistently, whether it's the sheriffs, the judges, the mayors, county attorney, is the desperation of communities on the front line of establishing and maintaining America's sovereignty, because the federal government isn't doing it. If you want to know how to do it right, literally the premier expert in the United States of America is here. Mark Morgan, former commissioner of Customs Border Protection, back when the leadership of that organization actually undertook to fulfill their mission of protecting the border of the United States. And he can tell you the ins and outs of how it should be being done. We all understand this administration has chosen as a matter of policy not to do that, not to protect the states against invasion. And so the results, I heard one of the sheriffs say, gosh, last year, it was right here, Sheriff Coe. Last year, we thought it was as bad as it could get. And we're tripling that. And folks, there's no ceiling on how bad this can get. How much death we need to see, how much violence and destruction, how much local communities and states and our whole country have to be overwhelmed, how much the poor of this country have to lose in opportunity before our own government, starting with the federal and working down to the state, actually take the action necessary and desperately pleaded for here today. Desperately needed. If we assume the Biden administration is going to stay on the course it has chosen, which no group of Americans supports, then that leaves it to the state of Texas and the other border states to utilize the authority inherent in their governors to declare an invasion, as the judge here found, as a matter of law under your Texas statutes, and making available legal recourse locally in the declaration of an emergency. But a governor can do that and repel the invasion. An attorney general can issue an opinion in support, assuming that's what he believes the proper legal conclusion is, as Mark Brnovich, the attorney general of Arizona, did. I will leave it at that because I don't want to water down the historic occurrence that's happened here today, the declaration that this country is being and has continued to be invaded as a matter of constitutional law. That's not immigration law. It's not Title 42. It's the U.S. Constitution standing on its own. And I'm grateful to the judges who are here, shown the courage to take this step. I appreciate, as I always have, the sacrifice the law enforcement folks here make every day, along with everyone they lead, in filling the gap for our communities and standing between us and evil as they do every day. God bless each of you. Thank you for coming. I appreciate you helping get this message out, and I know everyone here is happy to answer your questions, especially to clarify anything you're not quite sure about. Thank you for coming.
Okay, we need some orderly manner of asking questions. Mr. Bonacci, you want to?
Well, I guess if you've got a question, go ahead and raise your hand and call on you. And all right, Ben, go ahead.
I don't know if this would go to Congressman Chip Roy or Mark Morgan or the sheriffs. At this point, two things. Would you label the cartels terrorist organizations, and would you say that the federal government has broken their oath to the Constitution? Is this treason? Maybe a third question, what should the people do? How can the people help in this fight, or what's next for this fight?
Well, with respect to cartels and whether or not they are terrorist organizations, as you know, and as these folks know, I introduced legislation to designate them as foreign terrorist organizations. I think we should. I think we should treat them as such. And if some people get hung up on that definition, fine. Call them squirrels. I don't care. But give the tools necessary to law enforcement to go after them. I think it ought to be foreign terrorist designation. Knock their knees out from under them. Stop their funding. Stop the dollars from flowing to them. Approach them as the enemy they are. They are undermining Mexico, allowing it to become a narco-terrorist state, then funneling fentanyl into our communities while Americans die. What more do you need to know than that, right? So we should designate that as such and knock their knees out. I think the people of Texas ought to continue to follow this model. I think the people of Texas ought to stand up and say enough. We're not going to allow this anymore. We're not going to allow this flow. We're not going to allow the cartels to have power. We're not going to allow these drugs to come into our communities. We could stop it. You just have to choose to. The Biden administration, to answer your second question, has specifically chosen not to. It's purposeful. Don't kid yourselves, or all the media out here. It is purposeful. There is no other answer for it. They are exploiting our laws and allowing them to be abused to the detriment of our country, and allowing the collateral damage to be the people of Texas, the counties in Texas, while they just ignore it. You notice that when there's a tragedy, they have no problem going in front of the cameras to find South Texas, but they sure as hell aren't coming down to South Texas to deal with the daily disaster that we're dealing with every single day down here. What are they doing now? Building a massive, almost 4-acre tent facility to process more people, to send a signal to the world, come here. And then I'm down there with Border Patrol today on the river in the almost 100-degree heat, and a Border Patrol agent's walking up the road carrying a child, a baby, because the mother was out of gas and they're trying to get her water. How in the hell is that humane? How do you pat yourself in the back and call that compassion, which is what our Democratic colleagues in Washington are doing? So yeah, they're abandoning their oath to the Constitution, and Texas needs to stand in the breach.
WAI?
Probably for Mr. Shahan. All of you guys up here today have said that you need help from the governor. You need help from the governor.
I'm sorry, can you start over?
Yeah, all of you guys up here today have said you need help from the governor. You can't do this by yourself. What exactly help do you need? Because last time you tried to help by stopping people at the border, it destroys the supply chain in Texas. So what exactly help do you guys need?
Well, I think the governor's trying to do with stopping the trucks right now and inspecting the trucks, the vehicles. I don't know what kind of result we've had from the contract he made with the states across the river. I haven't seen much result from that, but he made a deal with them. But I think this stopping the trucks will help. I think going back to what he instituted before, with stopping the vehicles coming across the river, get Mexico's attention. But we've got to have their attention. As Congressman said, we need to stop people at the border. That's what we need. We need troops on the ground. If you declare it to be an invasion, you can do that. You can enter that. It's an invasion. It's something that's coming that's going to harm us. And the language is there in our Constitution. The language is there in the federal Constitution. So why can't we move on it? Why have we hesitated? So we're just asking him to please consider what these border counties are experiencing. He knows. We've talked to him. Our office talks to his office twice a month.
My question, I guess, is what would you like him to do, though, that will stop 10,000 migrants from walking across the border unobstructed? What would you like the governor to do about that?
Well, I think he's put up wire. He's putting up a fence. And, you know, for us in Kenny County, what we asked him to do at first.
A little closer to the podium.
I'm sorry. In Kenny County, what we asked him to do is to come and stop our border, bring troops. We have one landowner that owns all the land that's adjoining to Kenny County and Mexico. We wanted to get an agreement between him and the state, the landowner, to put objects, vehicles, wire, fencing on the border. But from an invasion standpoint, we want troops on the ground. Anyone else want to add to that?
Drive your point home. He actually answered your question. You may have missed it going through. It's repelling it at the border. The governor has that authority. In Texas, only the governor has that authority. Until he declares the invasion, they found as a matter of law and then availed themselves of emergency authority that they can do self-help locally. That's one item. That's what you've seen here today. But the legal finding is one the governor can make himself and then avail Texas of the Article 1, Section 10 authority to repel the invasion themselves. To be specific, for those of you not familiar with it, this is a provision where it lists a number of things states cannot do. One of them is wage war, not surprisingly, but that has an exception. And the exception is when you are actually invaded. That's been there since the beginning of the Constitution. The states reserve that right to themselves. They decide that question. The state decides. And that means the governor in this instance. It means the governor, which is exactly what the opinion of the Arizona AG found. So when the judge says turn them back at the border, that's literally what he's talking about. And that's the authority. That's the one step Governor Abbott hasn't yet taken. He's provided a lot of succor, a lot of help locally, as you heard about different examples, especially from the sheriffs. But that authority and that step has not been taken. And until people believe coming up into this state and into this country that they're going to be turned away, they will keep coming. They will keep coming. That's the one. That is the one step that has to be taken.
Clarify, using DPS to wage war on migration or
As I said, it would look just like Title 42, except under a different legal authority, the Constitution, Article 1, Section 10. We're not talking about tanks and planes. You're just literally talking about stopping people and turning them back around. But that's the legal authority under the Constitution.
This is for the judge. Kitty?
Go ahead.
Chief.
For who?
This for you and for everybody else who wants to answer this. I need to ask you this question to all of you. All of you. Would you be pushing this hard for this declaration of an invasion by the governor if the invaders were from Norway, Germany? It needs to be asked. It needs to be asked. It needs to be asked. I'm sorry. It needs to be asked because of the political whatever we're living. It's a legitimate question. Would you be pushing that hard if they were from other than
I'll
Latin
answer
America?
this. Okay, I'm going to answer this question because we are pushing it very hard. Now, Terrell County has less than 1,000 people. We have had over 100 different countries go through Terrell County. That is of every shade of melanin in your skin. We have experienced an invasion that is something of every language. And I say that. I am a multiracial judge. I'm standing here letting you know it is not of color. There are over 100 countries coming through. We express this. We are trying to protect the sovereignty of Texas. So we are letting you know that that's where we stand today. I am a constitutional judge, and we are standing behind the Constitution. Thank you.
Okay, can I now?
Yes, we have a question here from
Germany.
Yeah, Germany. Go right
Hi.
ahead.
First of all, thank you for letting me be here, and I would like to send this question to Mr. Morgan or a sheriff who can answer it. So this open border has created a child trafficking crisis like the world has never seen. This is the truth. Doesn't this now make President Joe Biden one of the biggest child traffickers on this planet because he's nothing doing? You mentioned it 3 times that the federal government does nothing against us. You are seeing children going through your borders. I camped 10 days at the border, seeing 87 children unoccupied from any adults coming to your country. So is this a yes or is this a no?
Yeah, let me tell you about that. So Secretary Mayorkas gets out to Congress, directly lies to members of Congress. He's lied to this man right here under oath. He's lied to the American people when he says, this is one of his shticks that he says out there, that they're developing a safe, orderly, and humane system along the southwest border. It's a lie. It's a blatant lie. He knows it's a lie. Let me talk to you about Secretary Mayorkas and this administration's safe, orderly, and humane system for the migrants themselves. Right now, under Biden administration's watch of a little 18 months, more than 800 dead migrants have been found at our borders. 800 dead migrants. If you add in what all these gentlemen behind me have discovered too, that number is exponentially higher. We have Doctors Without Borders, a non-governmental organization, has said that up to 30% of young women and children are raped and sexually exploited on their journey up here. Border Patrol agents, like this man right here, spent 26 years of his life. He can attest. Border Patrol agents multiple times have interviewed girls as young as 12 that have been raped multiple times on their journey up here. Tell me what the hell is safe and orderly and humane about that? Parents and smugglers themselves give young women, 12, 14-year-olds, they give them birth control and the morning after a pill on their journey because they're just expecting that they're going to be sexually assaulted on their journey up here. The Border Patrol in the past 18 months has conducted over 20,000 rescues. 20,000 rescues. They risk their own lives. Think, if they wouldn't risk their own lives, just think how many more dead migrants that we would have been found on the southwest border. And we haven't even talked about the trafficking. The trafficking, think about it. You don't have to be a border security expert. You don't have to be a rocket scientist to understand that if you exponentially increase by 300, 400, 500% illegal immigration, you're also increasing the atrocities suffered from human trafficking. The sheriff talked about that. A lot of these migrants coming because of this administration promised to them that they're going to be released and never deported. They're coming. And they're being smuggled. What they don't understand, at the same time they're being smuggled, they're also being trafficked. They just don't know it's till it's too late. They'll pay $5,000, $8,000 once they're released in the United States and get a knock on their door. It's a smuggler cartel. You know what? The price went up. I don't have it. No problem. Here's how you're going to work it off. That's happening every single day. So think about that. As the numbers this fiscal year alone, 1.5 million apprehensions. 1.5 million apprehensions. Last year, 1.9 million. Last year, I'm sorry, 1.5 so far this fiscal year. Think about the number of young women and children now that have been sexually assaulted because of the open border policies. Think about the absolute expansion of human trafficking and atrocities because of this administration's open border policies. Think about the highest number of deaths in any 18 months of administration that we've experienced right now because of the open border policies. Because the smugglers, the cartels, and the migrants know under this administration, if you make it to the border, break into it illegally, you will be released into the interior of the United States, and you will not be deported. Why the hell aren't they coming? Of course they are. And one last thing I want to talk about, another question. Another thing we don't talk about, right now under this administration, 850,000 known gotaways. 850,000 that have broken into our country and evaded apprehension. Why? Because 80 to 90% of Border Patrol agents are pulled off the national security mission, off the front line. They're relegated to administration jobs, hospital walks, transportation, security, and processing. That's right, 80 to 90%. We have literally handed over operational control large areas of our southwest border to the cartels. And this secretary says the borders are closed. And again, Representative Chip Roy, under oath, had the definition of operational control by law, which in part says the prevention of all unlawful entry. Yet that secretary said he has operational control at that moment, knowing that 800,000 illegal aliens have evaded apprehension and made it to every town, city, and state in this country. And those are the knowns. If you talk to Border Patrol agents, they'll say the number of those that have gotten away are way past of 1 million. There's 9 states in our country that only has about 1 million in population. Yet more illegal aliens have gotten away in the past 18 months. The 9 states total population. And yes, here's the reality, and this is where I get my hate mail, but I'm not going to stop, because just like these guys and gals have showed the courage and talked about the truth is, in that 850,000, there's some really bad people. There are murderers, rapists, pedophiles, and gang members. Every single day they're getting away, and they're making their way to every town, city, and state. How do I know that? Because Border Patrol has arrested about 19,000 criminals, including over 50 for murder. And every single day they're arresting a gang member or pedophile. So do the math. Think about how many dangerous individuals are among the 850,000 gotaways. Yet this administration stands by and does nothing. They double down. They lie to the American people. They say our borders are secure. It's a lie. They say they have operational control. It's a lie. What you heard today from these courageous individuals right here, the first time, as was said by Ken, is that this is absolutely an invasion. And it's not just an invasion of people. Think about it. Drugs, we mentioned that. 107,000 Americans died from drug overdose in a 12-month period. That's more Americans than died from all the terrorist attacks combined, the Iraq, Afghanistan, and Vietnam wars combined. In a 12-month period, more Americans died. The leading cause of fentanyl from adults from 18 to 45 is fentanyl in this country. And we know that 95% of the fentanyl comes from our wide open southwest border. Hell yes, that's an invasion. And again, the 850,000 gotaways. We've been invaded by gang members, criminals. I mean, the list goes on. And let's not forget, it was briefly mentioned about our national security vulnerability. I worked in the FBI for 20 years. Let's not forget that in this fiscal year alone, 50 illegal aliens have been apprehended on the FBI's terror screening database. 50, another record for this Biden administration. They actually apprehended and released a suspected terrorist in the United States. It took them 2 weeks to figure it out and apprehend him.
It took them 8 months to answer my letter to DHS asking that question.
Can you repeat that, please?
8 months. 50 illegal aliens have been apprehended this fiscal year on the FBI's terrorist screening database. And a couple months ago, they released a suspected terrorist in the United States. It took them over 2 weeks to figure out and apprehend him. It took them over 8 months to a congressman. I mean, that's outrageous. I was a commissioner. If I would have ignored Congress, I heard about it every single day. You just don't do that. And let's not forget, it barely made the news. The FBI just recently thwarted a terrorist attack where an illegal alien that was in the country illegally was planning to kill and assassinate a former president of the United States. And how was he going to do that? He was going to bring additional terrorists through the wide open southwest border. So hell yeah, I'm proud to stand next to you guys on the stage. And I agree with Ken. This is unprecedented and this is courageous. This is an invasion. And I agree, and I've been out there and will continue, just as everybody back here. Governor Abbott has done more to fill the gap left by this administration abdication of their constitutional responsibility under the Guarantee Clause. Absolutely. And so has A.G. Paxton.
I'm sorry to interrupt. We just got a lot of folks with questions.
Okay.
And I know some of y'all are still waiting for questions.
Name and title real quick. Just name and title.
A former Commissioner of Customs and Border Protection under Donald J. Trump. And here's another thing. I know, I'll shove it in a second here. So look, another thing is that we had the most secure border in our lifetime. And the first time, 35 years, I've served under 6 administrations, both Republican and Democrat, and the first time in my life, I'd never seen it until this administration, where they came and they intentionally, with thought, unsecured our borders. That's what we have right now. I'll shut up.
All right, we've got time for two more live questions.
Right here.
And then one-on-ones, as no one's leaving. But I've got Jasper here from Houston Park, and then we'll come back over here to the center.
Thanks. I have a question for the judge. And kind of building off.
Please speak up.
Yeah, sorry. So, building off of what Mr. Cuccinelli was saying about sort of the idea that the governor has the sole authority to actually enforce these provisions and actually expel migrants potentially, is that I just want to confirm, is that your understanding that the counties themselves do not have that power under the Invasion Declaration? And then, second part of that question, what does this order actually unlock? Like, what powers does this grant to sheriff's deputies and law enforcement in Kinney County that you didn't have yesterday? Does that make sense?
There's an article, section 418 of the government code of the state of Texas that allows, I'm sorry. Excuse me. Articles 418.108 of the Texas Government Code allows Texas mayors and Texas county judges to file a declaration of an emergency or an emergency declaration if they feel like they're being, if we feel like we're having a problem in our counties. When COVID came along, we declared a declaration for that. It's along in that vein. If we have a hurricane come in, there's some of the judges here that have endured that. You have a hurricane, you have a catastrophe. You can declare an emergency declaration, and we do that under Section 418. Now, as far as going to the invasion is pointed out in both constitutions. As Mr. Morgan pointed out, how could you not think there's an invasion? Y'all aren't here every day. You aren't around to see. In your photo, in your press packages, I put a picture in there of our school, the Brackettville Independent School District, and the rocks that are this high. I'm sure they weigh 3,000 to 4,000 pounds, but they were immediately put around our school to keep the runaways, the drives-offs, these cars being chased by law enforcement, to prevent anyone going into the school building or the school parking lot or the school, around the school into any of the buildings or in the grassy areas. And so they've done that here. And, but we've been invaded.
I'm sorry, Judge, I think he had a second part to his question. He wanted to know, if this unlocks anything for law enforcement locally?
Does it what?
Does it unlock any additional measures for law enforcement locally?
As far as enforcing immigration laws or just, I guess just trying to figure out the significance of this beyond just calling on Abbott to take action.
I believe I know what your question is. No, it does not unlock any additional authority. What these counties have done has declared an invasion is more to show support for Governor Abbott for doing the same. But there's no new, authority or the legislative, anything like that.
It would have to be the governor himself.
Correct. The governor is the only one that has the authority under both constitutions.
Okay, right here.
Time for one more question.
So,
two more questions.
okay, two more questions right here. Okay, so one question I have is every single time in this nation we have governors, sheriffs, mayors do something positive for this nation, they always find a federal liberal judge to stop you. Have you thought about that? Have you got ahead of that? Because you know they're going to do it. We've already heard them ask the question about, trying to make it a racial issue if they're coming from Norway. Seriously, we are being invaded. So have you thought about that, and have you put anything in place to prevent these federal liberal judges from preventing you from protecting the American people?
So nothing new is put in place. I will tell you, one of the roles I have today, I work with a think tank called Center for Renewing America, and we've written a legal support paper on this very subject. There's only one case under the Guarantee Clause, which is the clause you heard earlier, Article 4, Section 4, where the federal government guarantees your state, Texas, and every state against invasion. There's only one case that's gone to the Supreme Court. It was back in 1849. It was a different part of the Guarantee Clause. And the Supreme Court said that it didn't get to decide that case. Now, we're not used to that. But what that means in this situation is the state of Texas decides. The governor of Texas decides. And if you think back 200 years, that makes sense. 200 years ago, the southwest border was Georgia. Well, if Georgia was invaded, or Georgia thought Georgia was invaded, they didn't have instant communication. They didn't have the ability to go have a confab with Washington and get resources brought back down to deal with it. The state dealt with it. And so the state got to decide. And in 1849, when one of those cases, Borden is the name of the case, went to the Supreme Court said, this isn't for us to decide. In that particular case, it was Congress and the president deciding on the Republican form of government, not the party, in a state. Here, it's the question of whether the state's being invaded. The fact that we now have instant communication doesn't change who legally makes the decision. That's the only court history from the Supreme Court on the Guarantee Clause. The only case. And it tells you, it shows you that Governor Abbott holds that authority in his hands.
All right, we've got one more question here in the center.
Hello, my name is Victor Avid. I'm a retired Homeland Security Investigation Special Agent. And I have a question for the Sheriff. Sheriff Cole, if you want to go first. What if the governor declines the invasion? What actions will you take if he says, no, I'm not going to do it?
Well, that's a good question. We will keep on doing what we're doing, what few resources we have. We're going to, my guys are working 12, 14-hour days, 6 days a week. They understand what's going on. They're going to keep doing it. We're going to keep hard charging, and we're just going to keep trying to be heard either in Washington or Austin.
Will you take any different law enforcement actions if the governor declined to declare an invasion?
We're just going to follow the Texas Penal Code and the Constitution.
Thank you. Any more questions? Yes. One more. Congressman Roy. Congressman Roy. Oh. Go ahead, sir.
Roy. Unprecedented water shortages down here in the southern United States. Mexico has water lines. Can you or Tony Gonzalez, can y'all answer to why we're still bringing migrants through Mexico? They can't even afford to have their own water, and they literally
Well, I mean, that's a good question that opens up a whole nother lane of conversation about what we're dealing with here. And I alluded to it before with respect to allowing Mexico to become a narco-terror state, allowing Mexico to be crumbling before our very eyes, the Northern Triangle, all of the countries that we're talking about in the Western Hemisphere, rather than exporting the rule of law and standing up a strong Western Hemisphere to push back against China, this administration is destroying the Western Hemisphere, empowering China, empowering Mexican cartels to the detriment of our national security and other issues that the gentleman raises. And that, I think, is the point here about what we're dealing with on a real basis. And you know, I think we're going to wind down here shortly. You know, yesterday was Independence Day, and you know, 46 years ago, you know, we set out a nation, a republic. We set out to create a country where we could live free, and freedom requires security. And when we formed the Constitution 13 years later, it was to secure the blessings of liberty. That's what each and every one of these folks here are here for, and why I'm here to support them. And to answer the question about what do we do if the governor acts, doesn't act, whatever, look, I want to be very clear. Governor Abbott has done an enormous amount of great work to help secure this border and try to stand up alongside Border Patrol, but you can't do it. You can't do it, with all due respect to the Attorney General and the Governor, you cannot do it if you do not enforce the law. And if we're going to allow the federal government to not enforce the law, then it is incumbent upon Texas, through our ability under the Constitution, to do what is necessary to secure our communities. And that is what is happening here today. Thank you all.
All right, last question, New York Times.
Yes, hi. Can you hear me? This question is for the sheriff. Last week, Sheriff Coe took 4 men, border crossers, back to Eagle Pass and sent them back over the bridge. This question is for all the sheriffs. Have any of you taken an action like that, dropped off people at the port of entry? And if you haven't, will you consider doing that action in the future now that you have this declaration?
So yes, I did. We transported 4 back to the port of entry in Mexico so they could return home. There was no formal deportation. It's just we put them in the truck and took them home.
All the sheriffs are open to similar action?
And no, I haven't had the opportunity to do that before where I live and work. However, our relationship, and not the one here, it's a different beast, if you will. Yes, we're undermanned in Terrell County, and but we do have a station there where we can take and hold the illegal aliens if we need to. But Sheriff Coe didn't go to jail for it, so it may be something we entertain down the road.
My name is Randy Brown. I'm from Medina County. We have 2 major highways. We have Highway 90 and Highway 35 that comes to our county. So we deal with this 3-4 times a day. Wishing we were catching those that everybody south of us misses, but we're not making an impact. I'm from Texas, and those 3 words, we the people, we need to pay attention to those. The damage to the citizens of Medina County is considerable. We got a lot of high fence. They raise big deer. They're driving through the fences. They're running over irrigation pipe. They're tearing up equipment. Now we are catching them going south, and they're in stolen vehicles. Most of them are stolen out of San Antonio. We used to deal with them out of Houston. So we got stolen vehicles going south that are going down to load, and we got loads coming back north. And these people, I mean, most of the time when I'm asked if I'll talk about the pursuits or stuff with the media, I'm like, well, you're not going to print or say what I say, because the idiots that occupy the White House are the reason that this is happening. And those people that died in that truck in San Antonio and Bexar County, that's their fault. And the ones that have died in my county, that's their fault, because they sent the invitation that the border's open. We, the sheriffs, I'm not fighting a war in Medina County. We're fighting a war in Texas. And we have to come together. I personally, to answer your question, whenever I catch them and they won't come, I take my jail transport van and I haul them to the Border Patrol station in Cotulla. I did my part. I don't know what they do with them, but I did my part. So we do that often. Whenever they will not come pick them up, Our McDonald's on 35 and Divine has become an exchange location where we take the illegals, not immigrants, they are illegally here, write that down, and we exchange them with the Border Patrol. And that's where Border Patrol comes to pick up. Those guys are overworked, the boots on the ground are doing what they can, but their hands are tied by what they're told they have to do. They want to make a difference, we want to make a difference. All of us up here took an oath. We take that oath serious, and God bless Texas. Thank you.
Amen. To answer your question, I won't be deporting anybody. You come to Goliad County, you break the law, I'm going to throw you in jail. We're not going to turn you over to Border Patrol. We're not going to take you down to the bridge. Unlike Sheriff Coe, who has an extremely small jail and does not have room, we will make room for you. We have vacancies signed. We will throw you in jail. Everybody goes to jail. It's engaging in organized criminal activity. It's smuggling of persons. It's trafficking of persons. They're always evading. They're destroying the fences. They're trespassing. You show up in our county and you conduct yourself in that manner, we're going to throw you in jail. There is no deportation. There's just jail time.
Sheriff, real quick, some people don't understand what a game fence is, and I mean, this is your moneymaker. These are lives affected. These are thousands of dollars when you have to mend it and mend it and mend it or fix it. People out there don't understand.
People don't realize you drive through the fence, you're going to have to replace about 300 feet of that fence in order to get the integrity back. It's a lot of money. It's over $10,000 a mile for that fence. Then you got to throw in the labor and everything else that goes with it, plus the loss of revenue for animals getting out. There's one landowner in McMullen County who in 60 days had his high game fence driven through 34 times. Over $100,000 in damage in 60 days for one rancher. I don't know how many calves you got to sell to make up that amount of money, but I sure as heck don't have that many. So you're absolutely right. The damage is phenomenal.
Okay, one more question.
This is for anybody who wants to answer it. Basically, I talked to an immigration attorney earlier today, and he said that this situation could potentially create more violence. If that happens, if we're getting more pursuits pushed through here, if we don't have these open holes in the border, is that something you're concerned about? Is that something that you're prepared for, to have more pursuits, more issues coming through your counties? And what does that look like if that is the case?
Who'd you ask that? Who'd you get that from?
Immigration attorney.
I don't know who your immigration attorney is, but ask them, which felonies do you want us to ignore? You want us to ignore the evadings? You want us to ignore the engaging in organized criminal activity, or do you want us to ignore the bank robberies and the sexual assaults? We have a duty to uphold the law, and we're going to uphold it regardless of who it is. We don't care if you're American, if you're from Mexico, if you're from Norway, or wherever you're from. You come into our jurisdictions and you break the law, we're going to throw you in jail. We're going to uphold the law. That's about the stupidest theory I've ever heard, and you can tell them I said so.
All right, on that note, I know some of y'all probably have deadlines. Please, if you have individual questions, let's bring it up and get one on one. Thank you.
Yours?
Okay. I get it. Hello, everybody. Sorry for the low volume. People were really soft-spoken in this hearing, in this press conference, rather. So thank you so much for tuning in. Please share this video. Please share this video. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to go and interview some people, and I will be uploading those interviews later on, okay? So please, be sure to tune in. Be sure to share this video. Like I said, this is a historic day. This is historic information that came out. First time in history that they have announced an invasion. You have sheriffs, you have a judge, you have the people of Texas admitting that there's an invasion taking place, and the Biden administration and the Democrats don't want to do anything to prevent it. So please, do me a favor, share this video. My name is Will Johnson, UnitesAmericaFirst.com. Thank you.
Check, check, check. Check, check, check. Check, 1, 2. Check, check. Check, 1, 2. Check. Check, check.